Okay, good morning. We are continuing with Kuf Lamed Yeh Nesach. We're continuing with Seif Vav. Okay, so let's first start right into it. Vav. Shtei otios have kishnei chotamot. So if you have two different letters, it can function as two chotamot. והתפוסים, אף על פי שיש בהם כמה אותיות, לא חשיבי אלא כחותם אחד, כיוון שקובעים אותם בבת אחת. But if it's just a stamp that has a word or a few letters, that only counts as one because it happens all at once. It has to be two distinct, just like we had two distinct ksharim, you have to have two distinct otiot being used as two distinct seals, identification. ובמקום שמצוין מומרים וגויים שיודעים לכתוב, אין כתב סימן אלא למי שמכיר הכתב. Okay, now this is obviously applies today, that if you have people who you're worried about, mezayef, mumarim, goyim, people that you can't trust, if they know how to write letters or Hebrew letters like we have nowadays, they can print little stamps or whatever. So and they know how to copy Hebrew letters and words. So therefore, just doing that has no validity unless it's your handwriting or you're printing your own special labels. That may be okay, because that could be, again, a chosam has to be difficult for them to open and to be mezayef, but not impossible. So that should be fine. Okay, zayin. Mafteach v'chosam echad have kishnei chotamot. Okay, so this we mentioned earlier. So the Shulchan Aruch writes, and the Shach holds clearly lahalacha and based on the pshat reading of the Shulchan Aruch, that a mafteach, a key by itself, as we mentioned, does not count as a chotam. It's a lower level than a chosam, but it's like a partial chosam. And it's good enough in addition with another chosam to be considered two chotamot. Whenever you need two chotamot, a mafteach can work. But if you only need one and you only have one mafteach and not any kind of a seal, then that doesn't work. However, I want to point out that this is a machloket. I think it's the Bach, but it's certainly the Taz and the Pri Chadash. The whole lechatchila, a mafteach is 100% equal in halacha to a chotam. One mafteach is good enough as one chotam. Whether you need one or two, that will suffice by itself as one. When you need two, you're going to need two, but that does suffice. And it's brought down in the Aruch HaShulchan that one can rely on it, at least b'diavad. The Kaf HaChaim, this is going in Kuf Yud Chet. Remember, a lot of these halachot of chosamos, they mirror, or you have to really pays to learn to review both together, Kuf Yud Chet and Kuf Lamed. And so you're going to get some of the Piskei Tshuvos, or Psakim Tshuvos, or whatever, different svarim you'll have on Kuf Yud Chet, but they end around Kuf Chaf, or Kuf Chabet, or whatever, and they stop. So the Aruch HaShulchan as well. It's the Aruch HaShulchan in Kuf Yud Chet, Tet Zayin. So there, both him and the Kaf HaChaim, Kaf HaChaim is Mem Hey in Kuf Yud Chet, and they all write that b'di'evid it works. Chachmas Adam is at least Hefsid Meruba or Pshat Atchak, you're allowed to, Hefsid Meruba, you're allowed to use it. Anyways, also want to point out, it's in one of the svaros that are also mentioned. It's in Kaf HaChaim and other places. A mafteach in the olden days is not necessarily the mafteach of today, or not every lock is created equal. Some locks are easy to pick, and some are difficult. So some point out difficult locks actually may be of the best type of a chasima. So again, it depends what kind of a lock. And another interesting point is it's mentioned in the Kaf HaChaim, this idea, and also it's in Dat Koin Barav Cook in Reish Chavtet, that anytime you need 2 chotamos and you only have one, but it's a chosam that's recognized by the Medina, by the government. In other words, the government is going to be a makpid if you try and tamper with this seal and try and play with it, and you can get a fine or in trouble. And so then they point out, if even though halachically you need 2 chotamos, if you only have one, but the government there's a mirtas from the government, that itself gives it a status of 2 chotamos. Okay. So that's about the key. Now that we digressed on that, I'm just going to add real quick about a cork. So it's, but also something interesting to point out. Kaf HaChaim, starting from Kuf, there's basically 10 volumes of Kaf HaChaim. So they're all written by who? By Yaakov Chaim Sofer, except the very end of the last volume, starting from the middle of Kuf Yud Zayin, is Rabbi Ovadia Yosef Zetzal. So when I just quoted Kaf HaChaim, it's really coming from Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. Anyway, so what I want to point out now is it's also brought down in the Kaf HaChaim and the Aruch Shulchan regarding the cork. Nowadays, when you buy a bottle of wine, your typical cork that's put in there. Now, obviously, a cork that has the name of the company on the cork itself is better than a cork without. And again, it goes without saying, there's all different levels of chosamos, holograms, lasers, also a great addition. There's all different types of levels of supervision. And so we see that lechatchila, there are different levels of supervision that are required lechatchila, and some are better than others. There are different standards. Doesn't mean that there's no clear cut, which level of supervision makes it acceptable and not acceptable. It's very, very subjective, but there are different levels. And then as well, when it comes to bediavad, every case is different, and there's different levels of what can be relied upon bediavad. But what I want to say about the pekak, in Hebrew it's pekak sham, those corks, so they're difficult. That we had that beferish in the Shulchan Aruch. They're difficult and very tight to remove. So those count as one chosam. And then you have the second plastic covering that creates a second chosam. So what happens if you have a bottle of wine and it's missing the plastic cover, but it only has the cork inside? Is that okay? We're talking about regular wine. It's not mavushal. And the halacha is, lachatchila, it needs to have 2 chosamos. So according to the Ramah, there's a lot more to be makel nowadays because we're not worried about nisuch hayayin. The Ramah, first of all, this goes back to Kuf Yud Chet, Aleph and Bet. So there the Ramah writes, the Ramah says we're always noeg lahakel with 1 chosam, bediavad. So right away it's not going to be an issue if you follow the psak of the Ramah. The Shulchan Aruch is not so mekel. Kuf Yud Chet, Aleph and Bet. You'll see. There the Ramah does add also, we're going to see that bediavad, anytime you're not so worried about the wine being switched or the food, really there the halacha is about food and wine, here it's about wine. You're not worried because it's cheap enough, or you can't buy he can't switch it for anything else that he's going to profit. It's not going to help him to now switch it with something else. So many times this happens with delivery of food, that bediavad, it's mutter. This is, and that's the Ramah, and that's also the Beis Yosef. So it's not, that Ramah is not arguing on the Shulchan Aruch. They both agree that anytime you're not worried about the delivery service switching it, b'diavad, it's okay. Okay, so now if you have a bottle of wine that only has 1 chosam, so the pshat, according to the Ramah, would be no problem. Even lechatchila, you can pass it, well, I don't know about lechatchila, but pass it around, it's okay. And we're also going to see, it's also in Kuf Yud Chet in here, if you don't think it got ripped off by a person, but it was only happened by itself through travel, and you see that one of the chosamos, or sometimes even both, came off, and it wasn't, you don't assume that the goy did it and the goy knew about it, because once the goy knows about it, even though it happened by mistake, now the goy is in his possession, so it's a problem. So whereas you don't know for sure that the goy knew about it, and you don't assume that, we don't have to assume that the goy did it on purpose. Anyway, so according to the, if you have one pekak of a bottle, should be no problem according to the Ramah. What about the Shulchan Aruch? So according to the Shulchan Aruch, if it's a goyish delivery service, and perhaps mumar without using tinak shenishba, so then it can be a problem, because the Shulchan Aruch holds that you need to have two chosamos. So therefore, where's your second chosam? So shot number one could be it's a real problem. But halacha l'maisa could be it's okay. Again, could be if it's talking about a mumar and tinak shenishba issue. If you're not worried about him switching, especially a cheaper bottle of wine. Also, this also is brought down in the Kaf HaChaim as well. Even according to the Shulchan Aruch, b'di'evid many times or mekel with a sfeika, even though the Shulchan Aruch himself holds of one halacha, but if you could be mitzaref two machlokets, it could be two ramaz, two whatever, lahakel. In other words, maybe halachas like the Ramah, by if it's not derech nisa chayayin nowadays, you don't have to worry. Or even if it's a for sure oved avodah zara, like of time of Chazal, still it's a machlokes if you need one or two chosamas. Maybe you only need one chosam. Maybe you only need two chosamos if it's expensive. It's machlokes rishonim, not just for nisur deraisa. Maybe it's only for a chashud. You need two chosamos, but really you only need one. So the Shulchan Aruch again is machmir with all those different with those issues, but there is what to rely on. Okay, that's sorry for the little digression. And we mentioned the other day about a chosam muvhak. So the only source I found offhand right now that it counts as two chosamos is from Igros Moshe. Again, there's no source in there. Thought it'd be a more classical source, but you can look at Igros Moshe Yoreh Deah, Chelak Aleph. It's towards the end of Nun Vav. Okay, now let's continue back inside. Sorry. We are on Chet, I believe. Chatvam b'shnei chotamos v'chazer alav v'lo yikira. So now, a normal case, it's chayav two chosamos, you put on two chosamos, you send it, and now when you get it, you don't recognize those chosamos. In other words, they were probably replaced. O shamatzo satur, or it's just open. Aser. It's aser. Okay. Right? Because when it was in the hand of the non-Jewish delivery service, apparently there were no chosam on it, and it was in his hands. And we have to worry, maybe he did a little nisa chayayin, or switched it. Or he took out a little bit of the wine and put some water in there, and you didn't notice. V'dav hagav v'davka im ro'im shenistar bekavana ayidei adam. So the Ramah points out, it's only time it's aser is if we can assume that it was probably done on purpose, and that the goy, or if the goy noticed it. That's the Mefarshim point out. But if you can look at it, and it looks like, well, during the travel on the truck or whatever, it ripped on its own, or yedei behema, or through an animal, what is this? Tenukot shelo bechavana, whatever happened not on purpose, mutter b'di'evid. And it happened, so then it's going to be a mutter b'di'evid. V'afilu im yitkalkel b'kavana, yesh lahatir im Yisrael yotzei v'nichnas tamid. Now this is, of course, even if there was no chosam, or you know for sure it was b'kavana, as long as there's a mirtas, that always is going to save you. Cameras, you can be caught anytime. אבל אינו צריך לחזור עליו, אלא אם הודיע לישראל שנשתלח לו שהוא חתום בשני חתומות, אף על פי שלא הודיע עניין חתימתו, כיוון שמצא ישראל שני חתום בשני חתומות מותר. Now, as long as you find it with two chosamos, it's in general it's fine. You don't have to worry about it. You don't even have to go to check it. When you receive it, you don't have to check to make sure that there's two of them and authentic and that nobody checked it. You don't have to. Obviously, if you're running a business or a hashgacha service, you need to have checks and balances. That goes without saying. And of course, we mentioned there's all kinds of different levels of supervision. And the better the supervision, the better the hashgacha, the better it's more recommended to buy from that one. Okay. But again, all right, whatever. Just try and stay out of politics. Umikol makom nachon adavar lehodio surat hachotam kedei shiachzor acharav. But it's good that you let the other person know so that somebody checks and that you have some sort of checks and balances. Haga miu im katav alav otiot ein tzarich lehodio distam goy eino baki lichtov otiot. Again, I don't know if this applies nowadays, but he says if you're gonna handwrite it, then you don't need to tell him how you wrote it, because goyim don't know how to write in Hebrew. Ve'im hagoy omer she'achavit haya, and nowadays they speak in Hebrew too. Ve'im in America or Israel or wherever. Ve'im hagoy omer she'achavit haya metaftef, and if the goy were to tell you, oh, you should know I saw it was oozing, dripping wine. And he said, I sealed it up, I touched the wine, I drank from it, or whatever it is. You don't have to believe him. You don't believe him, you can still go after our normal chazaka, our normal assumptions, and you don't have to assume he touched it to make it asr. And even if you still see it's wet on the outside, and there is.
It looks like he's telling the truth.
Yeah, on some level. So it depends. You don't have to believe him. If in a case where you really do believe him, then it becomes a problem, at least for yourself. Fine. Let's go on. Okay, so now a Jew has wine in he's renting a house in the property or a building of a goy. But this is his house now, or he's renting. Umilu yain, and he puts wine in there. Im yisrael darsham afapi sheniach yain b'chatzer ve'ena lav lo chotav lo mafteach muter. Even if you leave it in the courtyard or in the hallway, but you're renting space there, and you leave it there open without a chosam, it's muter, because everyone knows, the goy knows, that you live there and you're yotzei v'nichnas. Even if a non-Jew also lived in the same building, it's not going to be a problem, because you live there and the Jew lives there and you're yotzei v'nichnas. Aval. Again, if you told him you're leaving and you're not coming back for a while, then that obviously creates a major problem. But what if you don't live there? Okay, you rented some space there, but you're not usually there. If it's locked up and there's a mafteach and a chosam on the wine, so then it's okay. Even if it's in that chatzar, it's not going to be a problem, or it's in your house. And certainly 2 chotamos is going to be enough. And Shach points out, according to the Ramah, because we're talking about yain with Christians, 1 chosam is enough. V'im lav, afa pishayayin be'ota bayit shesachar okana aser. But if not, you're not yotzei v'nichnas, so you don't have 2 chotamos, then it's going to become aser. If the non-Jew lives there, but if no one lives there, no Jew or non-Jew is normally there, then since you're renting it, we say it's okay, and unless, of course, the non-Jew is standing right next to it, because the courtyard belongs to the non-Jew, and it's normal for the non-Jew to be in the chatzar, but not standing right next to your wine. Anyways, it really depends on the metzias, if you're yotzei v'nichnas, and if there's what to be worried about. Okay, one more. Now, What are we talking about? Is if you rent or you buy from the house that's in the goyish chatzer. Aval bechatzer sheYisrael mamash shelo lacho v'lo sacharo migoy. But if the entire building, the chatzer, courtyard, is owned by the Jew, then afilu haya goy dar be'ota chatzer ve'ein Yisrael dar bo mutter. Then you could be even more lenient, even if the Jew, the owner, doesn't live there, he just rents it out, but it's his building. So then, ואף על פי שאין מפתח וחותם ביד ישראל, לפי שאין בה שום שייכות, שאין לו בה שום שייכות. So since, even though the goy does rent from you, you can still leave it there because the non-Jew has no rights to your. Again, we're not talking about a milva that we mentioned before. The non-Jew has no right to your wine. He has no reason to come close to it. He has no reason to touch it. So therefore, there's this mirtas of Yotzei v'nichnas ve'afila nimtza omed b'tzad hayayin. It's still going to be a mutter. Shaharei mikol makom nitpas alav keganav. The goy is going to be afraid. He doesn't want to be caught like a ganav. Now, v'hanimili bayom. This is during the daytime, because then during the day, the non-Jew is going to be scared. And aval balayla aser. If it's at nighttime, then it makes it aser. Let's keep reading the Ramah. What does this mean? What's the difference day and night? Haga. So in this case, because the non-Jew has rights to the place, he's renting, that's where he lives. So he has rights to the place, and therefore at night it creates a problem because there's no mirtas. In other places we wrote, so normally it really doesn't matter if it's day or night. It's really a practical case-by-case situation. Again, this is quoted from the Gemara, really from Tosfos over there, where it makes a distinction day and night. So therefore, it's on that case, on any specific, it's it's really bottom line, whenever the non-Jew feels like he has a right to be there and he can lock it up and there's no mirtas, that's when it's a problem. So there's only no mirtas when the non-Jew locks it up and doesn't expect a Jew, the owner, to walk in late at night. So then there's no mirtas anymore. So in that case, that's why it's at night, it becomes a problem, because it's a time period where there's no mirtas. So the goy has full rights to use the chatzer, and he normally locks it up at night because I have no Allah. The Jew who owns the building, he doesn't live there, he doesn't go there at night. Even during the day, it could be aser. If the non-Jew would be allowed to lock it up, and he does lock it, and there's no way to see inside, and there's no cameras, and the Jew can't just sneak in without the goy realizing, then it could be aser during the day too. It just, that mikra and tosfos makes a difference of day and night. I read this. Yeah, aval. If there's a hole of a sedek or a crack, mutter bayom afilu noah bavada. Even if it was locked, then wherever you can see, it becomes, that area is mutter. Ubalayla aser, at night it's aser. V'chaygavna afilu mistama v'zeh chalak shebein yom v'layla, and that's the difference between day and night.